International trade can often feel like this massive, incredibly complex puzzle, right? You've got raw materials sitting in one hemisphere, a massive construction boom happening in another, and this giant maze of logistics, payments, and quality checks standing right in between. Well, in today's explainer, we're going to solve that puzzle. We're going to do this by literally explaining the FAQs, the frequently asked questions of a major player in this space, Babhaniya Overseas. We're going to use their actual business model to decode how global sourcing really works. So, here's the million-dollar question we're answering today. How exactly do you take thousands of metric tons of raw earth, or modern construction materials for that matter, and seamlessly move them across oceans right to a buyer's doorstep? It's wild to think about. To understand this, we're going to follow the entire lifespan of a shipment, from that very first inquiry all the way to the final delivery. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the global trade partner, then the products. Third, we'll cover orders and payments, move on to packaging and logistics, and finally, wrap up with quality assurance. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the global trade partner. So, Babhaniya Overseas operates out of Bharuch, Gujarat in India. And listen, this isn't just some random location on a map. Bharuch is a massive industrial hub. They bring over 8 years of expertise to the table as a leading manufacturer and global exporter. This strategic location, combined with their established history, immediately sets up that foundation of credibility you absolutely need when you're sourcing critical materials from halfway around the world.
Moving right along to Section 2, products.
Here we're looking at two really distinct categories. On one hand, you have raw industrial minerals. We're talking things like silica sand, kaolin, bentonite, feldspar, and quartz. But then, on the other hand, you have modern building materials like AAC fly ash blocks, TMT bars, and aluminum sections. It is such a fascinating contrast, isn't it? You've got the Earth's raw, unrefined minerals sitting right next to the highly engineered construction materials that global infrastructure projects literally demand. Now, take a look at this incredibly specific number, 98.37%. When we talk about global logistics, it can sometimes sound a bit dry or utilitarian. But buyers aren't just importing generic sand here. They are sourcing highly refined, custom-graded production materials. For instance, their silica sand boasts a purity level of exactly 98.37% silicon dioxide. In this industry, that kind of precision is absolutely paramount to the end product. Which brings us to Section 3, orders and payments. This is easily one of the most critical FAQs in all of international trade. Think about it. When you're buying thousands of tons of material across international borders, how do you actually safely pay for it? Well, Babhaniya generally accepts two highly secure avenues for payment. The first is an irrevocable letter of credit, or an LC, which essentially guarantees the transaction through banks. The second is a telegraphic transfer, or TT. What's really important to take away here is that these terms aren't entirely set in stone. They can actually be discussed and customized based on the sheer volume of the order and how long the buyer and supplier have been working together. So a crucial point here is understanding the sheer scale we're operating at. The MOQ, or minimum order quantity for Babhaniya, is typically one full container load, known as an FCL. This is pretty much the standard unit of international shipping. Now, they do note that for specific, high-value materials, customized shipment sizes can totally be discussed. But generally speaking, if you are entering this supply chain, you're dealing in full-blown shipping containers. All right, shifting gears to Section 4. Packaging and logistics. Just think about it for a second. How do you protect high-purity silica sand or incredibly heavy TMT bars from the harsh, salty environment of an ocean voyage? This practical FAQ perfectly sets up how export-grade packaging is actually engineered. Notice how the packaging is tailored specifically to the type of material. For those raw industrial minerals, they use 50-kilogram polypropylene bags or these massive 1.0 to 1.5 metric ton jumbo bags. Wow. But for the building materials, the approach completely changes. They use highly secure wooden palletized packing with stretch wrapping and edge protection. It's a really clear look at how logistics literally has to adapt to the physical properties of the cargo. Of course, once it's all packed up, it has to actually move. And that brings us to a combined FAQ. Which ports do they use, and what are the Incoterms? This basically covers both the geographical route of the shipment and the legal responsibilities attached to it. This builds into a really clean 3-step logistical flow. Step 1 is preparation in Bharuch. Step 2 is shipping out of Mundra Port or Kandla Port. Their strategic location near these massive Indian ports allows them to offer much faster transit times and really competitive freight costs. And finally, Step 3, arrival at a global destination. They work on standard Incoterms like FOB, CIF, and CNF, which depends entirely on what the buyer prefers when it comes to risk and insurance. And finally, Section 5, Quality Assurance. Look, when you're building global infrastructure, you simply cannot afford subpar materials, period. So the big question is, are these AAC blocks and TMT bars actually compliant with rigorous international standards? To give buyers that absolute peace of mind, Babhaniya guarantees that their products meet rigorous quality benchmarks. And this is backed by third-party inspection agency certification upon request. But honestly, perhaps the most important thing for a cautious buyer is that they provide physical samples for quality testing prior to a bulk order. So you actually get to verify that 98.37% purity yourself before you ever commit to buying that full container load. Okay, so we've seen the products, the packaging, the ports, and the quality guarantees. The logical next step for any potential buyer analyzing this whole process is explaining this final FAQ. How do I actually get a formal quotation? The answer here really shows just how accessible global trade has become today. It's literally as simple as submitting your technical specifications and your destination port, and you can do this directly through a Get a Quote form on their website or, incredibly, just by shooting a message to their export desk on WhatsApp. It completely bridges the gap between massive industrial logistics and our everyday digital communication. Their source material actually features this really provocative question front and center. What are you waiting for? I love that because it perfectly summarizes the sheer ease of the process we've just outlined. They've essentially removed the friction from global sourcing by having these super clear protocols for packaging, secure payments, and port logistics. And that brings us to the end of our journey today. As their motto states, they are your trusted partner in global trade. By structuring this explainer around a real-world company's FAQs, I think we've really pulled back the curtain on international logistics today. It's not magic, right? It's a highly structured sequence of clear communication, rigorous quality checks, strategic packaging, and efficient port routing. So the next time you're looking up at a towering new skyscraper or driving on a freshly paved highway, just ask yourself, how many WhatsApp messages, letters of credit, and massive cargo ships did it actually take to put it there? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.